Welcome to the Mick, a Mook, and a Mike. Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Mace and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, actor, host, co-star of Shake It Up, R. Brandon Johnson.
My brother
Frank, how are you, pal? How's everything?
Good. We're gonna before we get to Brandon Johnson, our guest today, the host of everything, almost every show in America. I want to just say a disclaimer that this was taped on Friday or Saturday. Today's Friday, and it's going to air on Wednesday. So certain things may happen in the interim that
We're going to change
what we're going to talk about, but I think it's good to talk about what's going on in the world today.
Well, because it's so pertinent. I mean, it's everybody in America is confused.
Yeah.
It's like nobody knows what's going on anymore.
I think they're always confused, Billy.
I think you're right. I mean, there's that, but there's also the idea of saturating the media, and not just the media, but people in general saturating the country with lies, and pretty soon you know what the hell to believe. You don't know if anything's true.
Yeah.
Well, like the assassination attempt. Who knows what was what? I mean, I'm sure the guy took a shot at Donald Trump and he missed, but there's so many questions about
his motive, how he got so close, how it was an inside job. I mean,
Well-
and today is Saturday. By Wednesday, Biden may be out of the race, or he may be still debating whether he wants to get out of the race, whether the Democrats want him to get out of the race. It's crazy to me.
By the way, the fringe or the Republicans that are speaking in sort of the private sector, like private sector journalists, have been saying that this was going to happen for about 9 months.
What do you mean this?
Like that they were going to replace Biden.
Okay.
So
they're going to replace Biden.
yeah. And if you recall, like the mainstream media never talked about that.
Never.
Yeah. So.
But I think the fact that they had put a cocoon around Biden so much. I mean, he hasn't had a cabinet meeting in 9 months.
I mean, that's not acceptable, especially
especially with all the shit that's going on in the world.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's not. I think it's not acceptable for people like you guys who are, your voice and your opinion is very important. I think instead of the Republicans yelling about it, and I'm not saying that you guys are not Republican, but I am saying that your voices are necessary. I think that you guys should have been yelling at the rooftops for a long time ago. And I think that, that's like not necessarily you guys, but people like you guys and the Democrats and the populists should have been yelling about this, because the guy has really not been capable of doing the job for a long time.
Yes, but it's my belief that they were hiding it.
Yeah. Okay.
So and the fact that when he said when they trotted him out at the debate, then we saw what they were hiding. I mean, Ronald Reagan the last year was
without a doubt. Nancy was running the show.
Nancy was running the show, and now it turns out that Jill's running the show.
Yeah.
So.
And do we really think that? Do we really think that the wives are running the show?
We think that Nancy was directing Ron for sure.
Okay.
And we think that now it seems possible that Jill was directing.
See, he called him Ron. You know what that means, right?
They were close.
Yeah.
He said, Ronnie, what's in here, Ronnie?
He's such an asshole. You're every bit an asshole.
You knew that when the show began.
But I think that Jill is running, protecting President Joseph Biden.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
I mean, what's America coming to when the president of the United States calls the widow of the poor man that was shot, and she refuses to take the president's call because he was such an arch Trumpist that he wouldn't approve of her taking the president's call. I mean, what's the world coming to?
Yeah, I know. It's well, you got a Supreme Court justice holding a flag upside down, Another guy, they just made bribery legal. That was a Supreme Court thing. You know what? I remember when Kennedy got shot. I was a kid. I guess I was about 12, 13. But
you were 15.
63. 63. Yeah, I was 15. You're right.
But his maturity level was that.
They're numbers. They're just numbers, Frank. But anyway, when Kennedy got shot, the word was, everybody was like, was it a conspiracy? Did one man do it? Was one man conspiracy? It seems like in them days, anyway, back in the 60s, America had the idea that if somebody killed the president, somebody shot at the president, he was insane. It was a one-man deal. It was no conspiracy. Where Europeans tended more to say, over the years, it's been conspiracies. It's changing of power, all this other stuff. Nowadays, as soon as that shot was taken at Trump, everything went up on the social media. Republicans, Biden had him taken out. The Republicans the Democrats were saying it was a put-up job. It really never happened to begin with. He got hit with a piece of glass. Everybody. It's like constant fucking bullshit. You got to just separate through it. You got to find out what is the agenda. Whoever printed this, whoever said this, what is their agenda?
Okay.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that shot of the bullet streaking past his ear, I said, "Who knows if that's real or not?"
Yeah.
You can't tell anymore. You don't know.
Can't tell.
No.
And is that part of it? Is that what's going on? I mean, the flooding, so many fucking lies out there that it's not you don't believe the guy who's talking. You don't believe anything.
Well, let's ask. Trump goes over and kisses the guy's turnout outfit. What were you telling us before?
Yeah, the guy's name on the back of the turnout coat was spelt wrong.
So that wasn't his
It could be his turnout coat. It wasn't spelled right. So
Wow.
I mean, he had to be donated. It was a prop job.
How do you say his last name, by the way? Do you know?
I don't. Compadre. I don't. I'm really not sure what his last name is. So I say Corey Compadre.
Yeah, Compadre, whatever the hell it was. Whatever the hell it was. There was an I instead of an E on the turnout coat. It was spelled wrong. But
Well, let me ask you a question, Billy. Something about something that you said earlier. Who do you think shot Kennedy?
I would think Lee Harvey Oswald shot Kennedy. But was he involved with somebody else? I don't know. If you watch Oliver Stone's movie, everybody shot Kennedy. I was the only guy not involved in it. I don't know why I didn't get a phone call.
Do I think that Lee Harvey Oswald was a dupe for somebody else? Yes.
Okay.
But you think he fired shots?
He fired some shots. I don't know if he fired the shot that hit him.
Well, the one that killed him, it had to come from the front. I mean, I don't know. You can't look at that picture and tell me that it came from the back. I mean, the one you can see his head violently going backwards.
Okay.
I mean,
But,
the guy who shot Trump was the guy who couldn't make his high school rifle shooting team. I mean,
does anybody know did the rifle have a scope or not? I mean, I heard it didn't have a scope.
Well, not only I didn't know that was news to me, but I
thought it did.
Okay, I thought it did too.
I don't know. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
The other thing is, there's also people saying that there were other shooters, like that there was there were bullets coming from another direction.
This the Trump shooting we're talking about?
Yeah,
It was bullets. Could you hear that?
No, this is.
No.
I think this may be quite. This may be another. Derek
Why
Harris.
did you pick that little?
Excuse me.
I'm just telling you what was out there.
The things that you hear in this podcast do not reflect. Well, look,
The opinions of all
opinions
three members.
of Billy O'Connor and Frank Bass.
Wait, okay, so let's just.
He's going to say conspiracy theorist.
I really would like to understand from you guys' perspective, because you were older during the time of the Kennedy shooting, like, and based on all of the information you've been able to hear over the years, so you actually think that the shooter acted alone?
No, I don't.
Really?
This
I don't think-
particular shooter?
No.
Oswald.
Oswald, yeah.
No.
No.
Okay, okay.
I'm sure that
All right, pause.
someone fired on a
Okay,
grassy knoll.
Okay.
But we're not talking about Oswald. We're talking
No, I know,
about
but
current day.
But it requires you to have sort of that foundation of understanding that guy didn't act alone, and it probably was somebody in the government or somebody in some organization connected to that. And so, therefore, if you can make that assumption for back then you should be able to make that assumption for now. Like, why would you think that would go away?
Not necessarily, because back then we're acting in an information void. Everybody, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I get what you're saying. You're saying that there was less opportunity to
was-
acquire information.
Yeah,
There's a lot more outlets and people.
less opinions and more people like you
Right.
out here now
Uh-huh.
who question,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's right to question.
And one of the big reasons, as a matter of fact, that people used to be mom apple pie, the idea of America being on top of the hill and the foundation of truth and all that things. One of the biggest things was the Warren Commission. People didn't believe the Warren Commission when it came out.
No, because
And then they started questioning the fucking government. They said, wait a minute, maybe these guys aren't telling us the truth. What the
Yeah.
hell's going on? That was the first.
there was a bunch of old white.
Fisher.
There was a bunch of old white guys.
Yeah, but
I
it's
mean-
not. You go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, it's not so much that it's old white guys. It's like it's corrupt people
Yes,
in general. So
yes,
it's-
but the corruption's coming out because the government has been corrupt for years.
yes.
I mean, why was Joe Biden from Delaware? Well,
What? Credit card company, exactly.
of course, you think Joe Biden was clean as a hand. I mean, his son's a crook.
Wilmington, Delaware is where you always send your money in for the quick. But
And believe me, I'm not saying that I support Trump because I'm on the opposite side of supporting
here's
Trump.
the deal.
But
Everybody knew that Biden was a political glad-hander for 30 years, 40 years, working across the aisles, political glad-hander. And from Delaware, he got kickbacks. How did he get into Lincoln, for Christ's sake, the railroads in Chicago? Why do you think all the railroads went to Chicago? They were the ones that backed them.
Yeah.
Same thing here, the credit card companies. But in the meantime, you got the other side calling him a socialist.
well,
How the hell could you be a socialist if you're up to your ass in corporate money?
and now the other side is so right. And now the other side is so right wing with the advancement of J.D. Vance, and he's J.D. Vance is perpetuating the Trump Republican wing, and Trump has turned the wing into
His image.
in his image, correct?
Without a doubt, in his image. But I mean, here's a guy, I don't know, J.D. Vance, he was Afghanistan, right? He was in
Yeah.
Afghanistan. But you hear this thing about him screwing a glove from Hillbilly Elegy? What's the story on that?
I don't know, but
What?
He's
Come
supposed
on.
to-
don't, I
Come on, breaking
don't
news.
even want to.
No,
I don't want
no,
to
no.
get into
We're going to
that.
stay
Come on.
serious. With this.
Well, that's so obviously not serious.
Oh, I know. As I'm saying,
Yeah.
we want to stay serious. But Vance, I mean, the whole thing with these guys, anything goes that can get a vote, right? Anything goes, anything they can say anything, do anything. I don't know.
Okay, guys. So let's just talk. Let me ask another question about this. So, how does a shooter, first of all, that could not make his rifle crew or whatever it's called, obtain a shot like that? Number one. But how does he carry a ladder and a rifle across a field where there's Secret Service and policemen and people notifying these people that he's actually, this?
I don't know.
How does this happen?
I don't know.
And but doesn't okay? So you
I
don't
mean,
know, but doesn't it make you outraged?
Question?
Yeah, doesn't
makes
it
me-
make you so
Yes.
outraged that you want to ask like real questions about it?
Yes, as it does the female who who looked like Barney Fife, trying
was like-
trying to get Hoster in because they're so intent on hiring diversity in the government.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all of this stuff is coming back to
And
haunt
that's
us.
just not in the government. That's in your industry. That was in my industry.
Of
That was
course,
in everybody's.
of course.
No more like, don't worry about the test as long as you got a certain amount of gender or whatever.
I'm all for equal opportunities, but the bar is
But
being,
no blacks in film, right?
No, come on. We're going to make jokes, or we're going to have a discussion.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Ger. Go ahead, sir.
No, I'm saying I'm all for equal opportunities, but
Be competent.
be competent.
Know your job.
Don't lower the bar just because somebody's black, or just because they're a female, or just because or just because they're white. Just fucking hire the best people
Yeah.
possible. And that gal was a joke.
Why doesn't that work in government? Why can't we hire the best people in government? That's another thing.
Well, because it doesn't pay as well. I mean, Elon Musk is putting $45 million a month into getting Trump elected. Do you think he'll have some control over Trump?
I would imagine. Yeah, of course. Well, that's what we have. Auctions. That's it. I mean, it's
Well,
like you said, it doesn't pay as well. I can't think of a president, whether it be Clinton, Obama, they're not rich right now. I mean, they're all rich coming out of office.
Of course, Mitch McConnell's rich.
Of course, they all are. I mean, you got to be rich to get in now. I mean, you can't even run for Congress unless you spend about 15, 20 million. That never used to be the case. That's what they spend $100 million on a presidential election. It was an enormous amount of money. I mean, that's a drop in the bucket. Now that's the coffee money for what they got to pay.
Who do you think will replace Biden if by the time this airs on Wednesday? Who do you think will replace
Well,
Biden?
I imagine the party's going to go with Kamala Harris. She's next up, right? It's her turn. But that's what backfired once before when they gave it to her turn is Hillary, So
Yeah, but Frank made an important point earlier about the money.
Yeah. The money is, I believe, I'm speaking the truth here, but the money that's directed for Biden can only go to Biden or Kamala Harris. It can't go to a third person who's not currently on the ticket.
Well, the Democrats, not besides shooting themselves in the foot, what was it Mark Twain said, I don't belong to any organized party, I'm a Democrat. They besides shooting themselves in the foot, I mean, they have nobody to blame. Where are the fresh faces? There are some good Democrats out there. That governor of Wisconsin, that chick is terrific.
Gretchen Whitman of
Whitman?
Michigan.
Michigan, okay. I think she's cool. I mean, she's bright. She's
young
face of the party.
Yeah, and Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania is a good candidate too. But then we get into the question of whether or not America will elect a Jew.
Yeah, you're right.
So I mean, where does all this bullshit come from?
I mean, I think it's always been here.
It's always been here, but we're more aware of now than anyhow.
We're bathing in it now.
We're bathing in it.
Yeah, and it's hard to shake.
Yeah, because you don't know what's true anymore. That's the worst part about it. You don't know who's giving you the bullshit, where it's coming from. You know it's bullshit. You don't know how much bullshit you get, but everything you get. I
mean, you can't even watch television anymore and get a balanced view of anything because the Republicans watch Fox and the Democrats watch, MSNBC or CNN, and the networks purport to be down middle of the road, but they're not middle of the road. They lean left.
We have to have we got to have like a real show on this.
We have a real show now.
But a full show. Like we have to talk about.
Well, we'll talk about it after the situation with Biden is resolved. How about that?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But I think like you said, the journalists as well. Journalists, you want a platform to get your views out, whether it's a column you have in a newspaper, whether it's a show you have on MSNBC or whatever. But your responsibility is to give what you call honest journalism, what you think is honest journalism. Not supposed to be. But if your boss says, I don't like that show and I don't like your opinion, you ain't using it. Right. You have no platform.
Right.
So that's the journalist dilemma, right? Do you tell the truth or do you listen to the corporate people that are in charge? They're writing your paycheck. You want a paycheck? Then do as you fucking told. So where's the honest journalism?
Well, there can't be any honest journalism, which is why I say that we need to have a full show on this because there's only 4 or 6 companies that own all the media.
Exactly.
So it's impossible to have like a
nobody owns us.
That's right.
Nobody owns us.
Nobody owns us. We don't even get paid.
We're past. Yeah.
Is he coming in?
I can't put him on until we're ready.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's
do a full show on it.
Yeah,
Frank.
but we will. We'll do one after the situation is resolved with Biden. We'll do it. We'll do it. Our next show will be on this.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's see what
So
happens.
can we bring in Brandon?
Okay, perfect.
Hey, there he is.
Go.
Hey.
The handsomest man in America.
That's what they wrote in the yearbook.
Did they really? Did they really?
I might have had a little influence on that.
Brandon, that's my buddy Billy O'Connor.
How are you, Brandon? Nice to know you, pal.
And my other-
Really, a pleasure to meet you, sir.
And that's
Nice to meet
Derek
you.
Harris.
Hello. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Derek?
So you've been busy. You've been hosting everything in America.
Everything in America. You thought Seacrest was busy. I'm giving him a run for his money.
Good for you.
What
right?
What have you been doing? I mean, we all know you hosted Shake It Up alongside Zendaya. But before we do talk, what are you doing now?
Yeah, so we can work backwards. Candidly, yesterday, I wrapped a kind of a commercial campaign for an undisclosed real estate agency. So that'll be coming out in a few weeks.
What's it called?
BlackRock?
BlackRock? What's it called? The Trump Organization? It better not be the Trump Organization.
No, sir. No. This is it was a fun little shoot. It wasn't rocket science by any means, but I was a group of agents making people's dreams come true with regards to real estate. So got to do that yesterday, and then what else? Also did a quick spot for Zapier AI, which was a 4-spot campaign that just came out 4 days ago. Pretty zany stuff, more comedic, fun, spokesman type things. What else?
But
I think
and you've been hosting all of these shows, haven't you? Like the Disney shows and.
Yeah. I mean, my entire career, I've vacillated back and forth between theatrical and hosting, and that whole, when we dive into the world of Shake It Up, it's kind of a full circle moment where you're an actor, but you're playing a host within a show within a show, or a show within a show. So the hosting aspect was something that an opportunity was brought forward to me in the early 2000s when I was in New York City. With a production company called The Concept Farm that I had been doing various spots for them. And it was an info.
You were doing One Life to Live when you were in New York, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I was doing One Life to Live. I created the character Michael McBain. And then ironically, right when I moved out to LA in 2006, I got pulled back to screen test against John Brotherton. And he ended up getting the role for a series regular, but then they wanted me to reinvent a new character called Chuck Wilson III, who was a Southern ranch hand.
Oh.
So that was weird.
Nice.
But at that, it came back to New York. And I've just been bopping back and forth between the coasts, since the early 2000s.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you stay alive, man. Frank is always saying you got to stay alive in this business.
So when you do
whatever it takes.
Yeah, when you were doing Brian Winters, that was on Hannah Montana, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that was sort of my first introduction into the whole Disney world. Was doing Hannah Montana and Brian Winters, an exaggerated version of that red carpet host. And then, I think that really assisted in Howard Meltzer, who cast Hannah Montana, brought me back for Shake It Up, and then met Rob and Chris, rest in peace, and all those guys. And, I was kind of a last minute situation. I'm not sure if you knew how that crazy casting situation went for the role of Gary Wilde. But
before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little about what it was like working with Miley Cyrus?
Here's what I'll say, and I'll wrap it up real quick. The title, I will say that there was a moment on set where she came up to me and said, "I'll be 18 in 5 years."
Whoa.
And I was like, "Okay, gotta go."
What do you think she meant by that?
I think she's like excited that she can vote. I think she was really excited. No. I mean, look, candidly, working on that set, working with those people, was really a blast. And my first episode on that show, Fred Savage got to direct, which was super. I was a huge Fred Savage fan, and he was, he's such a pro, and just made it easy. Everybody was really welcoming, and it gave me a lot of freedom. And again, I think that just helps you take more and more risks. But at the time, I was actually hosting an HGTV show, and it was kind of a fluke thing where I had wrapped a show. I got a late audition. I came in. I went in front of Howard. I was learning the lines as I drove from set to the audition. Did it, and then he freaked out and brought me into Michael Poyeres, and he says, "Brandon, do it again. Do that again." And I did it. And Monday morning, I got the role of Brian Winters, and off we went.
Nice.
Yeah.
So now back to auditioning for Shake It Up.
Yeah. Okay. So it's funny. I was just telling this story on set yesterday. So, since Disney Plus came out, there's been a whole new resurgence around Shake It Up. I was in Colorado 3 weeks ago, and my little cousins are watching it now, and it's such a trip. But I was telling this guy, he's like, "You look really familiar." And I was like, "Oh, Shake It Up." And he's like, "That's where it was." And we started talking about the audition process. So if you recall, the original Gary Wilde, the pilot that they shot was another gentleman, much taller than me. And for some reason, they decided not to go, and they recasted. So we went in, auditioned, and there was this other gentleman he went in right before my audition. He was seriously probably 5'4", and I don't know what that was about. He was really, really short, but he kind of had this Napoleon complex, which I thought was kind of funny for the character. Anyways, that went, and apparently he ended up getting the role. Now, here's the curveball. So when it came time to do the network run through, he was very green apparently, and it was just a lot for him. And I got a call on Thursday night at 6 p.m. to immediately get down to LA Center Studios, which is where we were filming, and you're gonna audition for Rob Lauderstein and Chris and everybody. And once again, there's Howard. So I'm like, okay, yet again, learning the lines. I'm blasting down the 101 to get down there. I arrive, I do my deal, and I leave. And I'm like, oh, that felt pretty good. They're all pretty happy, but whatever. Went to the gym. I get out. It's probably around 9 o'clock. My phone is exploding. I got my agent calling. I got Howard calling me directly. They're like, we need you on set tomorrow immediately. By 7 a.m. we want you to do a network run through, and we need you to reserve the next 13 weeks of your life.
Wow.
Well, and I was already working on a show for USA called Character Fantasy with Jeannie Mai. It's an interstitial show, so we shot in cycles. And I literally had 2 episodes left on that last cycle. So I agreed to come down and do it, but I had no idea how I was going to work this out with USA. So essentially what I did is I showed up. I did not sleep at all that night. I was totally stressed out. Got down there, did the deal. They said, all right, why don't you come back? I think we did film. I don't know, Frank, if you recall or not, but we reshot that pilot, I guess. And then we shot some pre-shot scenes, and then we studio scenes, and then we did the live audience.
Right.
They just kept telling me, all right, come back. And this went on. And on episode 26, I walked up to Rod Lauderstein and I said, Rob, do I have the job? He's like, nobody ever told you. Nobody ever told me I got it. They just kept pinning me. I kept coming back. And so that was sort of how I was just sort of thrust into that role of Gary Wilde. And what a ride it was.
We paid you lead pay, so you should have assumed that you got the job.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was one heck of a time, man.
And how did you like working with Zendaya?
Well, I think just watching both Zendaya and Bella, it was, I'm always fascinated by the talent sort of that Disney's able to pluck. But the thing with Zendaya was that, Bella had been working since she was 3? Mm-hmm. And I believe that Zendaya at that time had really just been doing a lot of theater up in the Bay Area. She was doing Shakespeare and stuff. So for her to come in somewhat green, if you will, again, I wouldn't say green, just didn't have as much as experience, and to step into those shoes, to be on set and see what all of those kids were doing, but specifically those two ladies with the choreography and the demands that are asked of them, let alone being series regulars, it's incredible. Now, cut to 2024. I mean, my God, what a catapult! I'm so happy for her. She absolutely deserves it. She got a great team around her, and she's a superstar. She's a global superstar. It's crazy.
Let me ask you a quick question. I'm not in the business, but when you say great team around her, you're talking about her agent, her
correct
coaches.
Yeah,
it starts with
exactly.
It starts with Claire, though, her mom.
For sure.
Her mom's brought her up in the theater, and her mom has always been a very steadying force in her life. And she respects her mom and does, her mom's not, one of these cloying moms like Brooke Shields' mom, Terry Shields, who was standing over Brooke at all the time. But she made sure that Zendaya never took any false steps.
Made the right turn.
So, I think she's the first person, Claire's the first person that Zendaya turns to in any time of problems.
Now, how old was she when Shake It Up was going on? When you first met her, how old was she? About
14?
14?
13?
Yeah, 13, 14. Yeah, right around that age.
At that stage, was there a team besides her mother? Was there like an
That was her mother,
entourage?
her
Just
mother and her father.
That was it.
Yeah, Kazimbe and Claire were there. It's such a trip too. I mean, when's the last time you saw Claire, Frank?
About 2 years ago, Tony
2 years.
Tony O'Dell and I had lunch with Claire.
Okay, cool. So if you remember how Claire looked when she first came on set,
she doesn't look anything like that now.
Claire was like the most. I mean, she was a school teacher. You know, she was very conservative and very sweet, and now she's got like the side of her head shaved and big bangs. She's wearing Converse. It's such a trip.
And she's lost about 40 pounds.
There's that.
She's been LA'd, huh?
She's been LA'd, exactly. LA always wins.
Well, you're not from LA. You're from Minnesota, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. Hey, Rod Carew, let's get into that talk.
Well, do you want to talk? Well, since Derek's here, why don't you talk about Prince first? Were you a big Prince fan?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll turn this over to Derek now, and I'll sit back and I'll let you and Derek talk.
Let's just hear the gentleman's perspective on Prince. I'd love to hear that.
My perspective on Prince. Well, growing up in Minneapolis, the music scene was everything to me. And
was it? Oh, wow.
He's a musician.
Oh, okay.
I'm a musician.
Drummer. You're a drummer, right?
Oh.
I'm a drummer.
Even more.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very conservative looking now. I used to look very different. But back in the day, seeing Prince, being around people like the incredible bands of like Husker Du, The Replacements, Soul Asylum, all these guys. And eventually I got to play with these guys. I worked with them. I played First Avenue where Prince filmed Purple Rain, all that kind of jazz. You know, being around this very, though small pond, very creative. So the music scene in Minneapolis and in the Midwest in general is really, really strong. The impact that Prince had at that time obviously was monumental. He had a club called Grand Slam, which was downtown, not far from First Avenue.
Went there many times.
Did you?
Yeah, there you go. So you know, Derek. So I don't know if you were ever lucky enough, but there were moments where Prince would show up. I went to one where he'd show up at bar time, which was really early in the Midwest. It was like 1 o'clock. And he'd do like a 3-hour set. You know, it was nuts. He'd show up unannounced and just destroy.
Wow.
So I always was, proud as a musician to come from that, be cut from that cloth. So, and rest his peace. And all the times too, like throughout high school, driving out to Paisley Park, going out to Shakopee, peering in, sneaking on, see if we can get as close as we could to the property back then. There's a lot of nostalgia around that. So,
in the area, are most people fans in the area in Minneapolis? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I equate it to the sport of hockey as well, in the sense that like you come out of the womb, they put skates on your feet. I played for 18 years, and it's the same thing too. Yeah. Like you're born into Minnesota and you're indoctrinated with the Prince lineage, just association. Right. So everything that he did for the city, everything that he's contributed back when he was still here. My buddy Rick Fuller, who had a production company, Fuller Harder Films. Phil Harder is a very well-known director. They directed some of his music videos, and then I went on to play with some of Rick's bands. So that was also another treat, is to kind of get access to that world a little bit more in ways in which others wouldn't.
Cool. I got this nagging question that is in the back of my mind. So when you and Ryan Seacrest are in the same room together, do you guys just break out and fight?
Well, I start out gentle with Ryan. I always do rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Fun fact, I actually was Ryan's photo double for Details magazine back in the early 2000s.
Wow.
but his team kept us separated. I never got to be around him, but there were times in, I think it was 2005, where he was, and this has happened throughout my career with every major television host, Jeff Probst, Phil from Amazing Race, and Ryan, is there comes a point where their contracts are up for renewal and the networks don't know if they are or if they won't renew. So a lot of times I will go in and I will meet with the networks and I will test and I will, kind of be that backup if so. So in I think 2005, I went into Fox, went in the boardroom and did a whole kind of American Idol run through.
Wow.
And they were going to do a spin-off show with Nancy O'Dell called like American Idol after, it was like, what, After Dark or something, It was just a companion show, a follow-up afterwards. And so, look, I've never aspired to be Ryan. I have a lot of, obviously, respect for that guy. I think Ryan and I share the exact same work ethic. I think we both love to work. I would love to have that abundance. So, but I'm doing all right. I'm making the best of what I got.
Yeah.
And I wish him the very best. He's certainly paved the way for a lot of us hosts, and it's a good model and diagram to work from.
Yeah, because I call you America's host, but you've hosted Get Way Out, My Yard Goes Disney, My House Goes Disney, RV 2030, Fox Soccer Channel, Formula D, Outdoors Life, Rally America. I mean, you're in line to get to break out big. I know it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Frank. Yeah, I'm currently doing the World Desert International Baja Series right now. So Baja 1000, Baja 500. That is the toughest, most intense off-road desert racing competition out there. There's nowhere else that can compete with it. There's people coming from all over the world. In probably 17 to 22 different countries come to compete. The San Felipe 250 kind of kicks off the season. We'll be launching into the Baja 400 in September, and then we'll follow up with the Baja 1000 in November. And that is essentially potentially a 50-hour race.
Wow.
Continuous.
Are you going to be down there?
No, that
Okay.
we shoot in a studio at in El Cajon, which is near the border.
Okay.
They're down. Race start and finish generally is in Ensenada, Mexico,
Okay.
and that's where it all begins. And then they'll go through this crazy, course track and stuff. Sometimes it's a straight sprint to La Paz in Mexico and back. But I've been doing that. I was really, to your point, Frank, I got really, really close in 2013 when The Rock and I launched the unscripted division for TNT. And so he had a show called The Hero, and then I had a show called 72 Hours. And that was a conglomeration of The Amazing Race meets Fear Factor meets Survivor. And we worked with all of those people. We had a 50-person crew. We flew to the most remote locations on the planet. Primarily, we shot the first season in the South Pacific area, but we were in New Zealand and Tasmania, Hawaii, New Mexico, all over, and Fiji. Like, we went 3 hours past where Zemeckis shot Castaway. Like, we were out there.
Whoa.
It was crazy. And so that was that was a whole year from shooting the pilot to filming. We were on traveling for 2.5 months straight. And then post, and then it came out. And had a lot of people in my ear saying, "This is going to be it, Brandon. This is you're the next Jeff Probst," or whatever they want to say. Or I've heard that so many times. You're the next Ryan Seacrest. You're the next Ty Pennington. You're the next Phil, or whatever it may be. But I think it's time for Brandon Johnson. I've vacillated in many different areas in that world, and I've been able to inject sort of my theater background into understanding the tone that is needed for each genre. So if it's home renovation, or if it's intense automotive competition, or if it's reality competition, and I've done tons of proof of concept and pilots for Endemol. I workshopped The Winner Is for NBC with Craig Plestis. and Toby Gorman. And then I had to show Nick Lachey how to do it because he had a development deal. But there's another example where
Interesting.
at first he just was a deer in the headlights. He's like, I can't do this. And I'm like, I know, I can. and then I said, no, you got it. So we went through that. But those are just moments, man, where you got to have the skin of a rhino and the soul of a butterfly. You have to keep showing up and believe that it'll click when it's supposed to.
So you have different versions of yourself almost. I mean, you got to be like a comic reading the room. You got to say to yourself, "This is going to fly. This ain't going to fly. This is going to fly."
Yeah,
that's right. And you know that. So that's exactly it. We all kind of wear various masks, and we change and we adapt to that environment. And yeah, you're exactly right. You got to read the room. You got to know your audience.
Can we put you on the spot?
Yeah, I think I'm on the spot right now. So go for it.
Can we go like let's see. Can we do like a rendition of a host for Baja and then switch over to Home Improvement? Just like a quick one-liner.
Sure. Welcome to the 56th Score International World Desert Championships. I'm Brandon Johnson, and we're taking you now down live to race start for Ensenada, Mexico, and intense race action.
Damn.
Backyard of the Johnson family, where they've wanted to upgrade and get rid of that pesky landscaping things that you see everywhere. So we've got the crew ready to go. Lighting looks great. The weather's good. And off it's been 15 years since I got to do the or 10 years since I did the renovation.
I want to ask you about one of the shows you hosted because when I was doing the research on you, it kind of fascinated me. This Cool in Your Code. It was filmed in the New York streets.
Yeah, baby.
What do we got here? We did use some buskers. I mean, who are you using for talent?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, Billy. You know what I'm talking about. So, hey, going back to kind of where the whole hosting thing started, I was working with the Concept Farm, and we really clicked with Greg Wysiak, obviously Hank Wysiak, who was at one time he's literally the original Mad Men from what the show is kind of based off of. Hank was top exec for Gray Advertising. And anyways, they said, look, we got this idea for a show. It's an infotainment show where we go to all the different zip codes throughout the boroughs, and we let you know we keep you hip to your zip. We let you know the best restaurants, whatever it is. And I had been living in New York City at that time. I moved out there in 98, but I've been going back and forth since the 90s. And it was right around that time where I was like, well, my focus was acting. You know, I was doing theater, I was doing off-Broadway, I was doing indie films and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, man, I've never been a host. What do you want me to do? And they're like, just be you. And I'm like, you sure? And they're like, yeah. So I said, all right. And it was a fantastic education of New York City, from going up to Arthur Avenue in the Bronx, getting the best pasta, going up to Jackson Heights, getting great Indian food. I mean, like, we're just zipping all over the place, literally and figuratively. And that, to this day, that ended up winning 19 New York Emmy Awards. It really, really kind of exploded. And then other agencies got wind of it. And then I met with, at the time, I went in to meet with Mark Turner when he was with Abrams Artist Agency. Now he's over at Gersh. But he was, I kind of was the right fit at that time in the early 2000s. And he spit me out on some hosting things, and I booked my first 2 gigs. And that's kind of what launched me into the whole hosting world. And I found that I'm lucky in the sense that when the industry is it's so crazy right now, but as that pendulum swims, I'm able to vacillate back and forth between different things. So I feel very lucky in that regard. And sometimes people aren't sure, is he a host? Is he an actor? But I think we're seeing now more than ever, actors hosting programs and things like that, So I'm just poised. I'm ready and waiting for the next big one.
When you were in Arthur Avenue, did you ever run into a New York fireman drunk? addled out of his mind.
Was he wearing a blue sweatshirt?
He was wearing a blue,
jacket?
blue sweatshirt with a Jets jacket, Jets hat on.
Yeah, he walked up to me and he goes, "I'm Billy, often imitated, never duplicated."
What are you trying to make me? Mama, look at you. What am I? Mama, look at you. You know, out there, you're still the best bread. Hey, Indian food, huh? Just out the Queens. Nice.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
stuff. So what kind of entertainment were you using? Were you using buskers? Did you like film like
Well, why don't you tell the audience what a definition of a busker
it's
is?
just like a
what's a
street busker? Is like a person playing a fiddle or something in a subway with a hat on the floor, playing one-man jazz band, or like
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
No, I mean, we definitely would add some of that flavor, but like sometimes maybe you'd go down to the Lower East Side and you'd go to Moby's tea shop and you'd interview him a little bit, or we'd go up to 125th in Harlem and we'd interview some musicians up there. We'd go into restaurants and we'd feature like really, this is where, at the time, this was where President Clinton came and he would get like the best shark. It was just like the best Italian foods. And we had a very, very small skeleton crew, and it was fun.
Did you ever on St. Patrick's Day run into a New York City fireman drunk?
And this time,
Leading the parade.
Stumbling my way up Fifth Avenue.
yeah, exactly. No, I think you and I collided coming out of PJ Carney's in Midtown at one point. I think that's why you look familiar.
Yeah. Maybe look a lot more familiar like this. What's that? That's how most people recognize me in a bar.
Yeah, we recognize your scalp.
Remember a guy telling me one time, I said, tell this guy I used to drink when I said, I don't know what it is about tequila. Tequila just don't get me drunk. And the guy says, you know why? That's the lemons. He said, you keep biting the lemons. The lemons keep you sober. I said, no shit, really. About 6 o'clock in the morning, the bartender's picking my head up. I got about 20 lemons.
Skin looks good, though.
Yeah. Another myth exploded. Oh, man.
What motivated you to try to go from Minneapolis to New York?
Good question.
Yeah, great question. I think I grew up an only child, and just from an era, just kind of a very independent spirit. I was a latchkey kid. I was on my own. My mom and dad were working all the time, kind of a somewhat of a blue collar to middle class, very, suburban lifestyle, still very safe back then in Minnesota at that time. And so I was just always very independent. But there was always a part of me that felt a little bit like a black sheep. There were dreams inside me that I wanted to achieve, and there were various. There's a thing in Minnesota where it's kind of like succeed, but don't really succeed. Like, don't be like super amazing or whatever. Like, it's weird. I don't know. Maybe Derek, you can explain it, but it's like it's very important to be humble. There's no bragging, but I had these dreams. So at the time, I was kind of playing music. I was phasing out of the University of Wisconsin. I was with this band. We had done 5 U.S. tours. We had released a few records. We had a lot of success in Los Angeles, a lot of success in New York. And in '98, I was like, so what are we doing? And they kind of wanted to be big fishes in small ponds. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. And so I sold my Camaro. I bought a one-way ticket to New York City. I was going to start playing drums for a band called Diffuser that were on Hollywood Records. We had been in talks. The night before I was supposed to fly out, they decided to go back to their original drummer. So I was like,
damn.
Oh! And so I just said, F it. And off I went into New York City with a lot of piss and vinegar. And second my foot hit the ground, the pulse lit me up. I was home, I was fresh, and I was ready to dream. And my first couple of years there, though, was incredibly humbling, and I was still living a bit of a college lifestyle, so it wasn't odd for me to be coming home at 6 a.m. and letting it rip. But eventually, I had to, really start to go for my dreams. And I had met who did I? So somehow I was introduced to a guy named Michael H. or Michael Hilfiger, Michael Houghton. He is one of the family members of Michael Hilfiger. I'm sorry, Tommy Hilfiger. And he had a band. He was a singer looking for a drummer. So I somehow got involved and started playing with him. And we had Jack Daly from Lenny Kravitz. We were piecing together like the super group. There's all this chatter. Like, we're going to sign with Warner Brothers. We're going to tour with the Stones. We were practicing next to the Beastie Boys and David Bowie. And here I am in my early 20s, just like out of my mind going, this is incredible. Also, Michael was dressing like Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots and Smashing Pumpkins. And like, we're going out, hanging out with all these guys having dinner. And so one night, we were having lasagna at Michael's house. And Jimmy Chamberlain, the drummer for Smashing Pumpkins, who I spent a lot of my youth playing to all of his records. Now I'm sitting across from my idol, and one of them. So Michael plays him our demo. They come back out. Michael comes up to me and whispers in my ear and says, so I think Jimmy's going to be playing for us now.
Whoa.
Thanks.
Whoa.
And it was a record, needle across a record. And we all just kind of sat there at the table. And I put my napkin down and shook Jimmy's hand and said, nice to meet you. And I walked out the door. And I metaphorically kind of threw my sticks in the garbage at that moment. And I just said, no one will ever affect the momentum of my dreams in that way again. And it was really surreal. So that is kind of the impetus of what thrusted me forward into really leaning into acting. And at that point, I put blinders on like a Clydesdale. And I put all of my focus into doing that in New York. And
how long did it take you to get your first job? Paying job acting.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because in the beginning, I was just putting my pride on the shelf, just doing anything to build a reel. But candidly, I would say it wasn't too terribly long. I ended up getting like my first like legit job was the lead in a horror film, which actually has become kind of a cult classic called Malevolence. There's a trilogy of it. The second one has Alexandria Daddario in it, and I was supposed to be in that one, but my character had gotten killed off. But I was the last of 400 to audition for that film, and it was on a day where, and the one cool thing about New York back in that day is you could literally do. I was doing print go-sees. I could go do a commercial audition. I could go do a film audition. I had like 8 to 10 auditions in one day. And I'm honestly not lying. It was that crazy. You're bopping around. And so I almost said, I'm not going to go to this thing because it was really far out in Long Island somewhere. But I did anyways. And I went in and I clicked with the director and I was the right guy at the right time. And that was sort of the first like legitimate, I think I was 6 days out of 7 shooting, get $100 a day. And I mean, I thought it was loaded. And that was the beginning.
So when did you go from Brandon Johnson, the rock star with the long hair, to Brandon Johnson today?
Yeah, good question.
Was it in
the
that?
rock star is still alive in me for sure. That part of me, I'm very much do not judge this book by its cover.
But when did you do the reverse George Carlin? When did you do the reverse George Carlin?
The reverse George Carlin. That's so funny. I guess I would say somewhere around 2001 was when I really, really, you know, I'll admit my lifestyle was really kind of spinning out of control at that time too. I was self-sabotaging. I was completely like at moments just, it was getting unmanageable. So I had a kind of come to Jesus moment, and I'm like, it's time.
Billy, you know anything about
Billy,
that?
you know anything about an unmanageable life?
Yeah. So Billy and I kind of come from the same school in that regard. I know a little bit about Billy, and I think we were both friends of Bill's. So,
Mr. William, without a doubt, Mr. Williams, a friend of mine.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So that was the moment where I knew that I just wanted more out of my life, and I knew that I was kind of killing the wrong Brandon, and I needed to find the real one that had always been there, but like there were a lot of layers that needed to be ripped off. So in that point, when I really focused on and hammered on treating that and getting some healing around that, that's when things really started to take off for me.
Oddly enough.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So
Not too time consuming either, that alcohol business, right? Not too time consuming. There's
no,
figure.
not at all. Not at all. I wish I had 26 hours in a day than 24.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, that was the change. That was the change. And it's so funny because still to this day, you know, and even in this moment, as I see myself on Zoom, I'm just like, God, what a lame hair, like so boring. You know, I've had every hair color you could think of. I've had dreadlocks, for crying out loud, in the 90s when I was drumming and stuff. But I think what that really plays to is just my creative spirit, and always just wanting to experiment, but now I do it safely. And the hair is not that big a deal to change here and there.
Do you have a picture of yourself with the dreadlocks that you could send me? Because I
can maybe pull it up even right now and you can see it, but I'll send it to you for sure. Let me see if it'll come through on the camera here. Let me see here. 1 second. You guys tell me if you can see this.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
yeah, sure. Look at
Oh
this.
man, wow. Let's talk
So
about
I'm Captain Jack Sparrow before that. Can you see those earrings? I got the big
Yeah.
hoop earrings. I got the
Yeah.
eyeliner.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't see, but those are purple, dark purple.
Oh,
Probably got a deep resume too with those dreadlocks.
They go there, yeah. It goes deep, my friend.
Yes.
in 5 years I'll be 18.
Oh,
5
good
years.
You would have taken her up on that back then.
Oh,
no, it wasn't me. That was, oh God, I'm going to get in trouble. There were plenty of suitors that were already
In line.
up on that.
knocking on the door at 13, huh?
We had the production had to stand down for a while until it was ready to come out.
Oh.
Whoa.
Oh, how about that stuff?
So then you got one life to live, and then your acting career took off. Big time.
Yeah, I mean it was ironic because for a minute there I was living on 69th and Columbus. When I first got to New York, I was 57th and 9th. I was Hell's Kitchen. Then I went up to 85th and Broadway. I was Upper West Side. Then I came down a little bit to 69th and Columbus. So I'd walk by ABC all the time. And, you know, I'm like, I had a judgment around soap operas and all that stuff, and everybody, oh, these guys, they're not thespians, and they're blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is, these people the series regulars are banging out 60 pages a day.
Amazing.
It's nuts.
With their lines written inside the coffee cups on ashtrays,
Amazing.
every place.
You know it. You know it. No, like we had scripts everywhere. I mean, they had it everywhere. And you most certainly strengthen your muscle of memorization. I mean, it's really crazy, but sometimes the series regulars could do, you know, various takes if they wanted to. But I came on, I was a recurring guest star for Michael McBain, and they were having a lot of trouble with Nathaniel Marsden at the time, and they needed a way to work him back into the fold. But I would walk by ABC all the time and be like, you know what, man, like, come on, I could do that. And I just kept kind of put that out in my head. And then I got an opportunity to go in and do it, and created this character. And that was that. But yeah, I really did, you know, learn the kind of the chops of that world and gained a new respect for it. And I think now, at the time, Frank Valentini was the EP on that. Now he's doing, is it General Hospital out here in LA? I believe so. So anyways, but yeah.
And now you've become a husband. Ariel,
together for 15, married for 11. Just had our 11th anniversary in May.
A father. This morning you went. You had to do 11:30 because you had to take your son to
Correct.
lacrosse
Yeah,
practice.
my 10-year-old son.
Whoa.
Good God, a decade. My son Soren turned 10 on July 9th, and he is involved in martial arts. So yeah, we had karate this morning, and I love seeing him get all you know, excited and motivated in that world. And obviously a wonderful opportunity to mention our friend Tony Odell, and showing Soren some of those fun pictures of Tony and Karate Kid, and certainly all our time that we have to share and shake it up together, and even in Cobra Kai as well.
Yep.
So.
Did you ever think the rock drummer from Minnesota, if you looked at your life today, where it would be?
Oh my God. You know, when you, and Billy can talk about this too, you know, when we start to connect the dots and it is baffling. There are certain people in my life that when I come up and I hug them, I pat their back for wings. There's just, it's a divine plan, man. And I don't know, I don't get it, but I do know that stepping forward now with clarity and in a more focused purpose in my life is being a father, being a husband, and then at the end of the day, an artist, being able to step in that from a sharpened perspective, a sharpened focus is truly a gift. And there was a part of me, I've just always been a dreamer. So when I look back at that guy, even then, I knew I'm so stubborn and so driven that I knew somehow, some way I was going to make it work, whatever it was. And I mean, I'm still going, and I've had different moments in my career where, the doors slammed shut. The phone stopped ringing. It was like getting sprayed with a skunk. And I'm sure you've had tons of people on here that have talked about those hurdles and challenges where I literally went from having 4 shows on the air within a month and a half. My son came into my life, and all of the shows went away. And like this show didn't get renewed. This special didn't come back. This blah blah, and it was just this kind of downward spiral, and it did get scary. At what seemingly should have been the most exciting, beautiful time of my life, I was so scared about being able to provide for my family that I didn't know what I was going to do, and I didn't know what happened because it wasn't like I did anything wrong. It's just kind of how it all the dominoes went. So we have those dark nights of the soul, but they're there for us to evolve and grow and get through, and some will grow and some will go. But I have chosen to stick around, and
Well,
the story continues.
I'm sure the best is yet to come. You've been
I hope so.
Without a doubt, man.
successful as you've been. The best is yet to come. Thanks so much for being our guest today.
Absolutely.
Anything, Billy?
No, Brandon, great to meet you, man. Terrific.
You too, sir.
And keep killing it, man. Put your head down, plow ahead.
You know it.
One day at a time. You know the deal.
Super pleasure. Very fun. Very fun. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Derek. And Billy, if I see you jumping up like on top of like cabs or something, I'll pull you down. Oh yeah,
Appreciate that, brother. Talk me down.
Talk him down.
I got one more question.
Okay.
Instagram. Are you on Instagram?
I am.
Do you have do you have a large following? Or you do you have some kind of
I suppose it's somewhat large. I don't know. It's nothing crazy. It's almost 14,000.
Okay.
I used to have a Facebook fan page, but that had over 1 million, and that got hacked in 2021. Okay. So I lost all of those people and lost the actual profile itself, which was a real bummer. I haven't been able to. I'm back on all those platforms. It's just at R Brandon Johnson. But yeah, I am.
Well, you say R. Brandon Johnson. Where did the R come from? Because
the R
came from
the R started.
There's another Brandon Johnson.
Correct. In that, and I've got a fun little story. If we've got a couple more minutes.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
Okay, so my full name is Richard Brandon Johnson. My father was named Richard. My grandfather was named Richard. I'm Richard III.
Wow.
But I've never considered myself a Dick Johnson. It was always a great icebreaker first day of school when they'd say, Richard Johnson, and I'd be like, you can call me Dick, and everybody would laugh. So in the early 2000s, back when we had a separation between AFTRA and SAG, there was another Brandon Johnson, and we started seeing each other on the early days of IMDb. And our credits were starting to mix at times because IMDb still hadn't figured it out yet. So I decided, okay, I'm going to define myself a little bit more, and let's just go with R. Brandon Johnson. I didn't want to be Richard or Richard B. Johnson, whatever. So that's how that started.
And you certainly didn't want to be Dick Johnson III.
I want to have 3 of those guys. So, but here's the funny story. In 2006 or 7, I'm out in LA, and I think I'm going back from another Disney audition, and I'm signing in, and I look and I see that the name above me is Brandon Johnson, and I slowly turn to my right, and I see him, and he's about 20 feet away. He's just signed in. Now, keep in mind that Brandon Johnson I'm speaking about is an African American.
Oh.
So we turn to each other, and I go, Brandon, and he turns to me, and I go, I'm Brandon Johnson. And so it's like Apollo Creed and Rocky 3. We're on the beach and we're running towards each other. We embrace each other and we're laughing. We're like, no way, dude. Like, here you are in the flesh. And then we became friends. And Brandon Johnson is an incredibly talented comedian, very talented sitcom actor, tons of stuff. Great voiceover actor. And I got nothing but good things to say about him. So that's a really wild, example of how the R was necessary, because we actually showed up. I've showed up at voiceover gigs and they all go Ghost White, and they're like, "Oh, you wanted the other Brandon Johnson?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So we've even gotten crossed over in bookings sometimes. It's really wild. So that's why R is there.
Fascinating. You're a fascinating guy. Fascinating.
Hey, so are you, Frank?
Well,
it's good to see him.
Derek doesn't believe that, but
well, somebody's got to keep him humble.
Frank's OG, baby.
Frank's OG, and so are you. Thanks.
We had a guy in a firehouse. His name was Richard. He came in, young guy, and he said, Richard, he said, but don't call me Dick. He didn't want to be called Dick, right? So for the next 20 years, we called him Cock. That was his nickname. Everybody called him Cock. Everybody.
What a way, Johnson. What a way to close an interview.
Yep. Thanks on the bang.
Thanks so much, Brandon.
Take care, man. Great.
Well. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Much love.
Great guy.
Yeah, terrific guy.
Great.
Great interview, man. It just rolls. He's just smooth,
Yep.
No wonder he's America's sweetheart. He wants to be on all the
He's America's host.
No doubt about it.
I mean, he's America's host. But now we go to.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Can we get some dreadlocks for all three of us when we do the show?
Yeah, we could.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get four. We'll get 4 dreadlocks because Joe West could use some dreadlocks also.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see. It'd be worth it to see you, Joe, me.
You can't do it. It's cultural appropriation, sir.
Derek and dreadlocks. Come on, man. We can break into a whole new.
So,
demographic.
Derek, let's get Joe on.
Huh?
Let's get Joe on.
Okay.
Says start video.
There he is.
There's himself.
Big alligators and slow internet.
That's exactly right.
Another fabulous Joe West shirt.
You guys can. I'll just keep it widescreen, and if you want to.
Okay. Well, how'd you hit him this morning?
Oh, I hit him often.
What does that mean? 86?
Yeah, right at it. How'd you know?
That's often for you. 86.
Yeah.
Didn't make any putts?
I made one birdie. I think I won some money on it too. So I hit it to about 4 feet on 15, and I made a birdie. Everybody else was all over the place, so I feel good about it.
Well,
They don't sell the skins till they do all the scoring, and they're not done yet. So, but anyway, it was a crazy morning. You should hear what happened the first of the week.
Well, I think we're about to.
Well, let's hope so.
Okay, are we on?
Yeah, we've been on.
Okay, great. All right. So it was about a week and a half ago. I got a call from this gambling site called Underdog. And I never heard of him, but I do know that one of the guys that works for him is named Dallas Braden. He pitched a no-hitter for the Oakland A's.
Right.
So he says his boss called me. He said, we're having a home run hitting contest, a wiffle ball home run hitting contest, the same day the major leagues are having their home run hitting contest. And they said, we need an umpire. And I'm going, to home run hitting contest, you need an umpire. Yep, we need an umpire. And Dallas said, you'd be the perfect guy for it. So he said, we'll fly you out first class. We'll put you up at the mansion at Turtle Creek, which is the best hotel in Dallas. Might be one of the best hotels in the country. And we'll give you a fee, And of course, I negotiated my fee a little better than what they were offering. And and I actually went to be the umpire for a wiffle ball home run hitting contest. They had 8 contestants.
I love that.
And the funny part of it was that I got to pick on every one of them whenever they didn't hit the ball very well. And it came, in fact, I might be able to send it to you because I think they've sent it to me now. I'll be able to send it to you guys so you can look at it and laugh. But
Is it going to be?
anyway,
Is it going to be televised?
well, they had camera crews there. They had 6 cameras stationary. They had 2 handheld. And one guy did an interview with me. He said, "Well, Mr. West, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, you know, I did 6 World Series and 10 league championships and 8 divisional playoffs and 3 All-Star games and 4 wild card games. And I think now that I've officiated a wiffle ball home run hitting contest,
You're officially
I
retired.
might have made it now."
That's hilarious. That's
Wiffle
hilarious.
ball home run. Hitting.
But
So, Joe, we started this podcast with a discussion about the state of American politics today, and this is going to air. Today is Saturday. We're shooting this. This is going to air on Wednesday. So between now and Wednesday, a lot of things are going to be changed. But what's your take on the assassination attempt? What's your take on the Democratic presidential situation? What's your take on all of this?
well, like I've always said that I don't trust the politicians because no one in their right mind would want to be president of the greatest nation in the world for $400,000 a year. Now, I know Trump doesn't take a salary if he's president, but I don't believe I'd umpire Major League Baseball for $400,000 a year, much less have the entire world looking at what I do to determine what's good for the country for $400,000 a year. So I think that's an ego position. I don't think anybody in their right mind would be in charge of the free world, whether you be Democrat, Republican, Independent. I don't care. That's just dumb. And I'm tired of hearing all this stuff about this side's conservative and this side is liberal. There's no other country in the world that's more liberal than we are. And we're liberal. Even our staunchest conservatives are liberal. We dropped 2 bombs on Japan and we went back and built it back. Whenever we destroy a country or go in and take over their dictator, we build it back. And do you think the Russians are going to rebuild Ukraine if they finally take a vote? Not a chance. We are the most forgiving, most liberal people in the world, and we don't do things the right way. We have inflation. We have inflation because of Congress, because they don't know how to spend their money. We have taxes because of Congress, because they need money so that they can throw it away. I don't know of a bigger Madoff scheme than your federal taxes. It's the biggest joke I've ever seen. There's no reason that they need to tax anybody that makes money 35 to 38% of their income. It's just, that's unheard of. In fact, every history professor in the world will tell you a country cannot survive if you tax the working man more than 15%. We're taxing them twice that, and we're still surviving.
And we're not taxing the big corporations.
Well, yeah, they're taxing them 20-some%, but if you take the corporations, they employ people. They put people to work. They pay people. They help the economy. This government drags the economy down, and yet we're still thriving. This country thrives in spite of the incompetence that runs it. You know, I used to say that about baseball, but this country is worse than baseball as far as that's concerned. We thrive in spite of the incompetence that's running us. And for guys like you mentioned earlier about the assassination attempt, you know, if we are so bad that we can't sit down and agree to disagree on certain things, that we have to shoot somebody for it, that's just not acceptable under any terms. And I feel bad for Joe Biden because his party has turned on him. I feel bad for Donald Trump because I don't think the man can stick to a script. If you gave him a script to be on one of your programs, he'd mess it up because he can't stick to it. He had a 3,000-word speech, and when he got done with his 3,000 words, he talked for 9,000 more words. I mean, that just happened. And
That's a lack of discipline.
that's awful. It's awful. And again, I don't mean to pick on either one of them because I think they're both crazy for wanting to do the job. And they say, well, it's in the best interest of the country. No, it's not. It's because your ego's in the way. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but it is. I don't care which side you're on. And it's crazy that we're dependent on these kinds of people to run our country. And you know what? I'm surprised China hasn't attacked Taiwan already. I'm surprised. And the Russian people don't like wars. They don't like anything that messes up their little economy over there. And they have people abandoning their military while they're fighting Ukraine because they don't believe in what their country's doing to who they believe their brethren are, which they think the Ukrainians are their brethren.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ukrainians, they don't want anything to do with Putin. And I understand that because he's more of a dictator than anybody. But the point being is we've got to have some common sense here. We cannot keep fighting amongst ourselves when we still have the greatest country in the world. Here's one of the best examples I can give you. When Trump was in power, in office, he raised tariffs on the Chinese like 20%, right? So our steel companies raised their prices 20% to match the tariffs so that there would be an equal playing field. So what did the Chinese do? They lowered the price of their steel so that they'd have the 20% tariff be part of their cost of doing business, which is good business practice.
Yeah.
So now all the steel buyers that I know around here in Claremont, Florida, they're buying the Chinese steel because it's cheaper than the American steel. And that's just dumb. That's crazy. Trump said he lowered our taxes. He lowered corporate taxes, and he gave them all their deductions. He lowered your personal taxes and took all of your deductions away. So, and then Biden goes around and he decides, well, I'm going to give everybody that paid for their college education, I'm going to give them their loans back. They don't have to pay them. Well, is that any different than telling the people that collect tips that they don't have to pay taxes on their tips? They're both trying to buy votes instead of putting everything here. This is what we need to do. We need to fix this. We need to close our border. That's been a disaster. And we need to fix what the tax rate is going to be. Put it in perspective. You live in California, you're paying twice the taxes I'm paying. And that's not fair.
Hang on a second, Joe.
I have no idea what's happening.
Wow.
Joe, you gone? Yeah.
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but
we can hear you. We
I
can't
think
see you anymore.
your camera went out.
Yeah, I think you have to stop bouncing.
Yeah, there you go.
It's good. You're back.
Yeah, you go.
Try to stop bouncing the computer.
Okay.
It's a nice shirt, though, man.
Yeah, well, you sort of strobed into your shirt.
Yeah.
We can leave that in. What the hell?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
So what were your final thoughts on that?
I just believe that we've got to grow up. You know, I think this complaining, oh, he stole the election. So what? If you want it back, go out and work for it. You know, and our whole country grew up on working for a living. We have too many people that want to take, and not do anything for it.
That is an extremely important point. Yeah.
So I mean,
we are our own worst enemy.
Yes, and I don't. Billy may have an answer and Derek may have an answer, but I don't see any solution to this problem.
Well, my solution, I think the solution is well, first of all, you know, Billy, you mentioned something earlier about them labeling Biden a socialist. Was it someone?
Well, when he was first running.
Yeah. And I think the reason why they use that that moniker is because that's the only definition that people really know, like the general public really knows, is socialism, like the general public.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. But I think what we really have is fascism, and I don't think people really know what fascism is, because if you ask the average person what that is, they don't know. And ultimately, the problem that we have in the country is first of all, everybody's divided, but they're divided because of the media. And the reason why the politicians are dividing everybody is because they're taking money from the corporations. And everything that's happening in the country, in terms of like where the country goes in direction, has to do with whatever the corporations want. And to answer the question about what do we do about it, is people just have to start purchasing. I think that everybody should start purchasing from the local man versus purchasing from corporations.
But that's not going to happen anymore because everybody's purchasing from the internet.
I agree, but if people start talking about it more regularly, then it could happen. Especially now where we have like other outlets of communication. So
there's a point to be made by what he's saying is buy locally.
Yeah.
You know, Rita grew up in St. Louis. My wife grew up in St. Louis, and I don't think she had ever been to an Outback Steakhouse till I brought her to Florida. She'd never seen a corporate steakhouse like Outback until she came to Florida. She would always go to the local
Mike Shannon's. She would go to Mike Shannon's.
You'd go to something that was locally owned, and you kept everything in the community. I mean, when we decided, we're going to ship everything overseas to get it made because it's cheaper. Well, sometimes it is cheaper, but is the quality as good?
Nope. Unless it's made in Japan.
Now the Japanese are pretty intelligent people, and I had a professor one time that told me this. There's 3 countries in the world who can technically afford a war, and there's 3 countries in the world who can physically afford a war. And the 3 countries that could physically afford a war were China, India, and the United States, only because of the masses of people that they have. The 3 countries that could technically afford a war were the United States, Japan, and Germany. And those are the only 3 that when you have conflict, they thrive. Germany, during World War II, produced more goods and services than they ever have before or since the war. Japan was trading with the United States for steel to make their airplanes.
What is that
wars. Yeah, and the funny thing is, if you follow the money,
there you go.
You're exactly right there. If you follow the money, you'll find out what's going on because, that's sad.
Yeah.
That your morals are dependent on what your pocketbook makes, and that's wrong.
And now Elon Musk is putting $45 million a month into Donald Trump's campaign. Not because he's a big Donald Trump fan, so he can exert influence over Donald Trump if he wins the election.
I got to tell you a story about corporations and war, and not that I'm any kind of an expert or anything, but I'll tell you a personal story. In 1967, I was in Stuttgart, Germany, and I wanted to make a phone call to my father, who was in Cork in Ireland, right? He went back to Ireland for the first time since he left for America in 1950. It was, his father had died. Anyway, I wanted to call Cork. So I'm at an Air Force base in Stuttgart, Germany, 1967. I pick up the phone. I want to call County Cork, Ireland. They patch me through from Stuttgart to Belgium. From Brussels, they patch me through to London. From London, they patch me through to Dublin. From Dublin, they patched me through to Cork. So I had 6 connections the night before I could get to my party in Cork City. That's the way the phone system was in Europe in 67.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, you can't fight a war without communications.
Uh-huh.
So people in North Vietnam could pick up a phone and call Saigon with no problem. Now, the only people sophisticated enough to put that phone system in there was AT&T. So they did business, just like Coca-Cola did business with the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
They called it Fanta Orange. They changed the name of the orange to Fanta. So just like Henry Ford did business with the Nazis on the Rhine. The amount of trucking and the amount of tanks that the Ford company built right on the Rhine was so prolific for the Germans that after the war, he sued America for blowing up his tank factory. I swear to Christ, this is true, and won.
Wow.
And Henry Ford got a settlement for it. The business of America has always been business. and business goes on. And because it's the enemy, I mean, there is no enemy now. They shouldn't use a United States flag. They shouldn't use a Russian flag. They should be ExxonMobil. It should be like, it's corporate. I agree with you there. Money's money. It transcends borders. But that's a true story about what happened to me in Germany.
That's a great story. Can I just say one more thing pertaining to this too? So, the war between America and Russia and Russian, and I'm sorry, the war between Ukraine and Russia. We have 17 minutes. When we approve money for that war, people think, so they go, the Congress and the pundits, they say, oh, we're going to send $40 billion to Ukraine, for the war. And so the picture that it paints in the American mind is that we're taking $40 billion and we're sending it to Ukraine, and Ukraine government's going to use the money to fight against Russia. But what people don't know is that's not what happens. What happens is America, the government basically prints the money, and then they transfer the money to Boeing and to the military industrial complex. So that $40 billion, maybe $2 billion goes to the government in Russia, in Ukraine, which goes to the oligarchs. But all the other money just gets transferred from one account in America to another account in America. And that is not cool for America.
But that's what we're talking about as far as this is a country that thrives on war.
Yes.
Because Ukraine's at war, our economy is doing well. We thrive on it, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
We made money while we were in Vietnam, and everybody tells you that Vietnam was fought over stopping communism. No, it wasn't. It was because the best rubber in the world is in Vietnam, and who uses more rubber than us? In fact,
Really?
the Michelin world headquarters is in South Vietnam. We weren't in Vietnam because of the communists. That's stupid.
Yeah, that's always the case. Yeah, we were in Vietnam to stop communism. You buy that, because that's what you're sold when you're 18, 19 years old. They want to stop freedom, Frank. And yeah, I mean, it's always business. I mean, it's business or territory,
So
look at what's going on in the Middle East. Have you ever seen a war over there that was fought over anything except religion?
Right.
Yeah.
Two ideals. One doesn't like the other, and so they have a war over.
Well, you can.
The only intelligent war they ever had over there was the Kuwaiti War, when the Kuwaitis kept the seaport from the Iraqis. And so the Iraqi people, the Iraqi government called the United States, says, what do we do about it? Well, the federal government over here was mad at the Kuwaitis for something they did. And so we told them, well, go invade them, take them over. So they did. So who had to go get them out? We did. I mean, it's just one thing after another. We do not make smart decisions when it comes, especially foreign policy. And if the United States had not controlled the Israelis in the Middle East, the Israelis might have taken over the whole area, because the Israelis work. They do stuff to improve their economy. They gave them a desert and they turned it into an oasis. They're not dumb people. They know how to run a country. And even though sometimes they have to have weapons on their teachers in school, they're not afraid of anything. And we're the reason that they're still in Israel instead of owning half of the Middle East, because we kept them from invading other Arab countries. I mean, look at the reality of it. When that thing happened a few months ago, where they came in and started attacking the people at that outdoor
festival,
the Israelis went right back at them. And you know what? No one has looked out for the innocent victims like the Israelis have when they went after those other people. No one.
No.
I mean, we bombed Japan. We dropped a nuclear device on the city. We weren't looking at, well, it's going to be collateral damage. We didn't look at that. We went in and said, this will stop the war. And it did. It did.
I agree totally. I mean, anytime a war is stopped, the sooner it's stopped, the less people are going to die. The sooner it's stopped. And after, by the way, after we dropped the bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, MacArthur, when he went into Japan, the first rule he made was any American soldier caught striking a Japanese citizen is going to do 5 years in a penitentiary. Standard rule. So the invader didn't become the oppressor. And then they cured more lives with curing diphtheria and the amount of disease that was on the ground in Japan because they had no penicillin, they had no this, they had no that. So they actually think they might have saved more lives than they lost in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Certainly if you were an American on a carrier on your way to invade Japan, you were damn glad they dropped that bomb. I mean, damn glad. You ain't gonna, and that's the deal. I mean, when you sign up, you expect the might of the United States to be in your corner. I mean, I don't see why any GI would say, no, I don't think it's a moral dilemma. I mean, we saved more lives than we cost, actually.
But the guy that dropped the bomb on Japan was Harry Truman, against advice from his military leaders.
Yep.
And the guy that sent a battleship in to sign the treaty in Japan made sure it was the USS Missouri because that's where Harry Truman was from.
That's a great point. I never thought of that.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Aboard the Missouri,
He sent the Missouri in to be the treaty maker. And here's a guy who lost money being president. He's the only guy. Well, I don't know. You have to say Donald Trump lost money being president.
I don't think so, but go ahead.
He's the only guy that lost money being president because he didn't go work for, like you said, the corporations after being president. He didn't give the corporate speech and get the $50,000 speaking fee and all this garbage, and the rest of them did. He went home in his own little Buick from Washington, D.C. with his wife. And Congress tried to parlay this into, well, we can make this work for us. We should give him a pension. Harry Truman was the first president to get a pension.
Wow.
But they didn't give him a pension because they felt bad for Harry Truman. They gave him a pension so they could vote themselves one.
Yeah.
And these guys get a pension for life.
Yeah.
Whether you're there for 1 term, 2 terms, or whatever. And how do they get to vote themselves a raise? How do they get to vote themselves a pension? How do they get to vote themselves medical care when the average American out here has to work his tail off to get it done? That's not right. They're running our economy is nothing more than a Madoff scheme.
Yeah,
only on a bigger scale.
Billy and I are in total belief.
Couldn't agree more.
Billy and I are in total belief that everybody should have term limits.
Couldn't agree more.
Everybody should have term limits, especially the Supreme Court. But that's
Well, here's a funny thing. Let me ask you this: you got a good worker that works for you. He's done a good job for 4 years. Do you want to get rid of him because he's been there 4 years?
depends what job he's in.
But that's my point. If he does a good job, why do you move him out?
Well,
I mean, they put term limits on the president because of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was the cause of term limits for the president because they felt like he stayed too long. But if you have a good worker and you've got a good business and the guy works for you for 8 or 10 years, why do you want to get rid of him?
well,
You don't. If you have a good senator or good congressman for your state, why would you want to get rid of him?
because the government is set up to be governed by people, and
And eventually power corrupts. Basically.
eventually power corrupts, and eventually the quote unquote workers become the bosses. And when the workers become the bosses, it's time to change the worker, or it's time to change the bosses.
I understand that, but let's put it in perspective. What if you, in the state of California, paid for your representatives? What if I, who live in Florida, had to pay for my representatives? And you pay them what you want to. Make them negotiate. You talk about free trade and capitalism. That should be how they get elected.
Yeah, but they're going to be negotiating with themselves.
Oh no, they wouldn't be.
Well,
Not if the party is run right.
Well,
They wouldn't
the
be.
parties,
I mean,
both parties are so far from being away from being run right that that's a pipe dream to expect that anybody would not vote in their own self-interest.
Well, yeah.
Currently,
I agree with that.
currently.
I mean,
Anyway, we're probably running out of.
we got 8 minutes, I think. But I mean, I think
we'll
a great
continue
discussion, yeah.
we'll just continue this discussion after the Joe Biden situation is resolved, after we know who's running for the Democratic presidency, whether it's going to be Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, or whether it's going to be Gretchen Whitmer or whoever it's going to be. We'll continue this discussion next time.
But
Because
do you believe he's being undermined by his own people? I do.
yes, yes and no.
But do you think he should step down?
Do I believe he should? Well, he can't step up because he can't walk up the stairs, and
Yeah.
I believe he's where Ronald Reagan was in the last year of Ronald Reagan's presidency, and I can't see how he's going to carry forth for another 4 years.
I think 4 more years would be, yeah. I
So
mean, you
it-
see the way these guys age when they're in office? I mean,
Well,
what
you know,
happens to them? I mean,
I think
4
that-
more years of Biden aging like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's an old 81, which Joe Biden is,
Right.
and a young 78, which Donald Trump is. That doesn't mean you should vote for either of them.
No.
You should vote for somebody who you feel can get the country straightened out. I don't think either of them can. I don't think Kamala Harris can. So
But Billy could do it.
Oh, yeah, Billy O! Let Billy O in there! I don't want the presidency, Joe. Put me in charge of the Treasury. I like the Treasury. You can keep the presidency.
He put you in charge of the Treasury, we'd be broke.
Exactly.
You're like what Milton Friedman said about Congress. If you gave him the Sahara Desert in 2 years, it'd be out of sand.
if you gave him the control of the Treasury in 2 years, the gambling companies would be running America.
Hey, you think if bookmakers ran the Treasury, that we'd be in debt? There'd be
No.
no national debt. I can tell you that if the bookies ran the Treasury.
Listen, let's be honest, Billy. If you ran the Treasury, you'd be dead in the 6 months.
Success. I could never handle success. I couldn't even handle failure. I can't handle nothing.
6 months, you'd be
Oh,
gone.
Good talking to you, Joe.
Always good, Joe.
let's-
Go Billy O.
let's,
Go Billy O.
let's catch up again in the future, for sure.
That'd be great.
All right. See you, my friend.
Oh, Joe, take
Always
care.
a pleasure.
Bye.
Take care.
Hit him straight, pal.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, well, he's made a lot of good points. You know, it's one of the best things I ever read politically was Cicero. I mean, I didn't read Cicero, but it was a quote of Cicero's. Don't get the idea. I read Cicero, but it said, "People in power, regardless of the form of government, will make laws to benefit themselves."
Right.
There's nobody in the world that can disagree with that statement.
you read Cicero?
No, I read about Cicero.
I read about a guy named Cicero, a guy from Cicero named Al Capone. He said, "What taxes?"
I tell you, I had a guy come into a bar one day and he told me, you know, alcohol, he's drinking a couple of drinks. He says, alcohol is the cause and the solution of all problems. And I said, attend a bar and I'm giving him a drink. I says, wow, that's pretty fucking profound. Right? Alcohol is the cause and the solution of all problems. I said, where'd you read that? He says, Homer said that. Homer. I said, wow. I'm thinking to myself, this guy reads Homer? You know? He says, yeah, Homer Simpson said that.
Before we run out of tape, goodbye, Derek. Goodbye,
Goodbye,
Billy.
You
Derek.
know, it's
Goodbye,
such a
Frankie.
pleasure, guys.
It's
It
always
was,
a pleasure.
it was a lot of fun today. It was a great second
We,
paragraph.
we did it again.
We did it
Yeah,
again.
it was a lot of fun.
I look forward to continuing this after the
Yeah.
Olympics.
We find out who we're throwing stones at.
Yeah, after. All right, folks. Be
All right,
well.
thanks for looking in. Appreciate it. Stay well.
We'll see you next week.